Hi, and welcome to the VFX Artist Podcast. On today's episode, I have Mark Woodcock on the show. Mark has recently been through some injustice as an artist through a VFX studio that he's recently worked with. I bring on Mark to discuss what has happened as he felt right to discuss and bring to light some of these injustices. I'd like to stress that some of these remarks may be unverified and some of these may be speculations. So they are to be taken with a pinch of salt. But whilst artists are increasingly under pressure to find work, it is quite difficult and tricky times. And it was in my interest to bring this discussion to you all to hopefully to raise awareness and to also to hopefully to protect artists from falling into some of these traps. I hope you find this episode useful. Welcome to the show, Mark. Yeah, welcome to the show. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah. How do I go about it? Well, you got in touch basically, of course.
Yeah,
I
I guess.
happening.
Well, I could say, well, thank you for having me, and I guess I don't know what you want to call this episode, but we could call it something like crooked VFX or exploitation in the VFX industry. Although saying that, I don't, talking about something, which is I feel a touchy issue like this. I wouldn't want to, sort of bring a bad name for myself, but there are just things that have happened to me recently, which, especially in this current climate, which I think are worth raising. Because there's always an issue of people saying, "Oh, you get blacklisted or whatever if you say certain things." But the thing is, what has happened recently was so absurd and not normal. The fact that I would get a dozen people, family, friends, to check these interactions, just to check my own sanity.
Of course, yeah.
And then when they're looking at things going, oh, what's going on here? Is this a real company? Then I just got to the point where, okay, I can only be sort of amicable and cautious and polite for so long. And basically I ended up doing that post on February 14th, 2024. Then I made this post about IXOR VFX and just how it affected and saddened me because of this current climate as well. So this work that I did for this company, it was meant to be a couple of weeks, and it was sold to me as lighting and rendering, and it just ended up being like huge amounts more. And when I delivered it on the 23rd, then I was still being asked to do more things. So that there was never an end. I never got end confirmation. I had to keep private messaging like an editor, some random person that I've never spoken to. Like, do I work here anymore?
Okay.
So,
wow.
And then you just get ghosted, and you're thinking, like, hang on a minute, I've just done literally, it was something ridiculous, like 330 hours in 24 days.
Right.
So, and that's not even, averaged out. That's like, so I was starting at about 10 or 12 hours of working every single day until the last few days, 21 hours straight.
Right.
And it was such an utter disrespect that I felt a proper backhand.
Yeah. Can I ask, like, can you run us through how it all started, like how you came across the job and like the recruitment process and just how it all went about?
Oh yeah. So part of what I do is I speculatively email companies or just fill in application forms, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that throughout the year.
Okay.
And so I guess that's my sort of cheeky tactic, because I have like a list of about 200 companies in the UK and Europe. So I sort of log when I communicate with them and make notes.
Sure.
And if you, I guess I guess that would be a tip to anyone trying to do that, because then you can check that you're not overly harassing the company.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think I sent a sort of speculative application, had an initial back and forward with the founder.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm going to say founder loosely, because I'll mention some stuff later. But so this started having communications with this guy called Andrew Nikos. I can't pronounce his surname. Andrew Nikos B. And I think we had an initial phone call. I did write some notes on this, but it was regarding just a simple like modeling job for like, I don't know, €1,000. So just make an environment. That was it. And so I just said sure. So I could like do it in a couple of days or something, just casually. And then that was suddenly on hold. And then a week later, then we had another call, and he said, "Oh, actually, for 4 times the amount, we just need someone to do some lighting and rendering, which will be more interesting for you." And so I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'll do that." They just said, "Oh, yeah, it's casual. We'll give you all the models, yada yada yada. You'll be working with our team, and we've got cloud rendering services." So it was just a bit of back and forward. That was around 28th of November 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, so I get sent these AI mid-journey images, and they said, "Okay, we need it to look in this cartoony, Pixar-y style. So, this is what we want, and we're going to make all the models, and it'll just be lighting and rendering." So that sounds simple enough, like really basic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I signed the contract, and it gives these basic terms, maybe not as specific as possibly needed at the time, but it says 50% paid up front, 50% after.
Right.
But there's no time limits, so that's one slight issue initially. So I begin doing the work early December, and I already, when I get invited to join these Slack channels, all companies use different things. I notice there's already environments work, so I think, okay, that's great, because I'll be sent this probably by someone, because there are loads of people posting like download links and things.
Sure.
But I think on the phone call we had, he was just saying about creating pre-visuals and animations as soon as possible. So I begin doing that, and I'm just looking at what's being said, but there's no real environment, so I just have to quickly mock things up. And a few days into the project, all I'm seeing is they're downloading toy models for one. It was a Christmas video, so there was like a beginning animation from clouds go down. So I had to animate light and render basically. So go from the clouds down, and then there's a sign. It goes right, and then you see a workshop, then it zooms in, then some interior shots. But all I see is loads of toy models, but they're not even organized. So when it gets to the weekend, after the first 5 days, like I see another guy join one of the Slack channels, and he says, "Hey, I'm Alan. I'm going to be helping out with this project." Normal stuff. So normal stuff. Keep in mind, there are all these other people. And I say, "Sure, sounds good." And then I think by day 6 or something, then there's some communications, and another guy who I don't actually know, but he's in the chat. He's already been, modeling some things, he just said, like, hey, I need a task to do. So logically, if you're invited to join a Slack group, you would assume that person, works there and it's all official. So I just say, sure, if you need a task to do, here's the task. And then this other person called Alan, who I later find out is the VFX supervisor for the project. He says, hold on, I will reorganize this. And he says, okay, yeah, I'll do this bit, and this other guy does this bit. So I just say, sure. I have no idea who all these people are, but you're all in the Slack group. So then fast forward, more time goes by, another like 4 or 5 days. And then Andrew Nichols, the boss guy, his lack of responses is so, insane. Like for the project that no one seems to be fully sure. Like no one's really responding regarding this project, and it's so ambiguous. Basically, I've sent 3 AI generated images, 1 3D animation done by another company, which I was told in the call, yeah, copy this beginning bit. So you're just told, okay, copy these guys. Great. Okay. Yeah, I could do that. Just pay me. But yeah, so communication just keeps going down. And then by about, 9, 10 days in, then he doesn't respond to most of my thing because I'm getting these models, or like I'm already doing layout.
Sure.
And by this point, I'm saying, you guys are giving me models which don't have shaders on, so I'm having to spend time look deving, and I've got this folder full of hundreds and hundreds of random files which are all in like binary code names. Some have names, but it's loads of digits and extra things. So I have to spend an entire weekend going through these files when I should be spending time with my partner and all that sort of thing. And I tell them this. I say, well, I've gone through these files, I've reorganized it, I re-upload it, but you've given me all these files which are only compatible with 3ds Max, and you've told me to do this in Maya. So yeah, by day around 11, then one of the few messages I get from Andrew Nichols just says, actually just focus on this one section. So I do that. Nothing is said about the contract, and then time keeps going on. I keep posting things. I'm barely hearing anything. By the time we get to, the end of the project, then no one's really talking to me, and I'm delivering these files because because there's no proper deadline. The first time I hear of a deadline, it was meant to be like, he said, what was it? I think it was around December 14th. No, actually, sorry, was it December 9th? He said the project is due in 10 days. Yeah, I've got a screenshot of that. So all of this stuff, luckily, I've taken screen recordings of because I'm not in those Slack groups anymore. But yeah, it was around December 9th. They said the project's due in 10 days from now. So, because there's nothing on the contract. So I assume, okay, December 19th. So I just make sure all of my work is ready for that time.
Yeah.
Also, it turns out the other guy who asked just for some tasks to do in the very first few days, he ends up, doing a section of it. And now it makes sense why a lot of these models were pre-shaded in 3ds Max, because guess what? He uses 3ds Max. So it's all coming together.
Yeah.
So by the time they finish the project, I deliver it, and then no one's talking to me anymore. I'm not even sure if I'm finished. It's December 24th. I'm still sat here when I'm meant to be with some family and friends. I'm just, they're doing random things. This editor's just saying, oh, yeah, can you just make us a new shot? It's like, what was this due yesterday or the day before? Or so they're just doing so many random things, and then I just explain, I can't do that. Like you're suddenly changing things, and because the other guy was using 3ds Max and adding post-processing effects to it, then I could can do that in Maya with Arnold. So I said, well, I have to, composite this as well in order to make it look how you want.
Yep.
So, that just added so much work onto it. Then after that's done, by that point in time, I've invoiced them about 3 or 4 times because I thought it was, the end date was like the 19th. So I delivered first on the 18th, and then I think the next day, because there was no deadline, they would just start giving feedback again. So it's so bizarre. So you think you think the end is there, but it just keeps changing. So yeah, between the 23rd of December and then that post on LinkedIn, I was basically emailing, and it took until about January 8th to get a response from their so-called finance manager, who just said, "Oh, production have said, the other people did 50% of the work, so we've given them 50% of the money." And that is as ludicrous as it sounds. Like, you sign a contract with your name with a company, but then out of nowhere they're like, "Actually, no, 50% of your money. No, we decided. No, we gave it to them." So
that's
like that's not legal. It's not even legal. It's like just making your own rules up. Like,
exactly.
So I try and be super amicable and write out everything as seen, discuss how the scope of things increased, even though I don't even need to do all this because legally, like,
of course, you're liable to be paid.
Yeah, it's like, it's my name. It's my name for your company. I don't know who these people are. You're just throwing money at for, their names aren't on the contract. So it's so redundant. It's such a bizarre thing to do. But yeah, they seem to just double down on it, and it takes until late January to actually get a response from Andrew Nikos, who is the sort of overlord person, and he just double downs on this whole scenario. So I decide, after speaking to a lot of like IXOR X staff members, that it's, the easiest thing right now is to just tell people about, what's happened, because not only is it quite absurd what has happened, they could have completely resolved this if they just paid me. Like, because from my perspective, I don't care if, companies are doing illegal things, because it's not my concern. Like, I'm hired to do some artistry, so I'll do that. And whatever else they fancy doing, whether it's, above board or not, that's not for me to be concerned about. So as long as I am paid, which, if they had done this, like they are legally obligated to do, not making up random rules about, 50% here, 50% there, whatever. Like,
I mean, I've never worked I've never worked anywhere that pays upfront before the job begins. At the start of a job, anyway. It's just I've never heard of anything like that. Did they actually meet that promise of paying upfront at the beginning?
Yeah, but I mean, it was like, it's lower than what my rate was, but
Of course.
because of, the state of the industry, it was just better to do something. But I think the mistake I made is being a sort of normal functioning human being and sort of doing the work. Maybe I should have. Maybe that's their trick. Maybe you just, as soon as you get paid and you've done one day work, you take the like £1,000 or whatever, and then you just stop.
Right.
Because it's not the overall sum is not huge. Like, I think the project was like €4,000, and I think the exchange rate, so it's maybe £1.635. So it's not a huge amount, but it will pay the sort of bills, mortgage,
Yeah, for sure.
and shopping, whatever, for like a month.
Yeah, yeah.
And especially for someone that is generally self-employed, it has a greater impact because I established my limited. Although sometimes I do work as a pay sort of standard contractor,
Sure.
I opened my limited company when there was a whole, like, I don't know if you know about the sort of law changes, IR35
Yeah.
in 2021. Yeah, so I think my limited company I opened in December 1st, 2021. So anyway, it means like during that initial week or two of the IXOR work, I had done the back and forward between my accountants and got my tax bill, got them to obviously reduce it as much as possible, and then paid it many months in advance because
Sure.
that's a smart thing to do, but
Yeah,
not if you're not going to be paid by a company,
of course.
and then not if
There's
you're
no
not going to
work.
find work. Because
Yeah,
I always keep like a 2 to 3 month buffer of like money that
sure.
doesn't matter, but
Hmm.
there's only
Yeah.
so long you can last,
Yeah,
really.
of course. Yeah, considering the state of the industry. Um, yeah,
Um,
it's understandable.
yeah, so it was a myriad of factors, but the long and short of it is like just live up to a contract. I mean, I've seen some bizarre things during COVID. Oh my god, the furlough. Trying to think of the word. Like, there's some dodgy things going on with the furlough pay, but I was being paid the normal amount and everything. So I raised it with the company, and they said, "Oh, that's a mistake on the pay slip." It's like,
Right.
hang on a minute. Like, I started messaging other people. They're like, all these people are being paid the furlough pay by the government, but they're doing projects. Yeah, but
Right.
if you're being paid as an artist, it doesn't matter because it's not your company. So you can look the other way in that respect. But yeah, this thing that had arisen where as I began talking to other ex-employees from IXOR, they were saying, yeah, like this is completely normal. And I said, well,
Right.
it's not normal. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's the opposite.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
um, so that opened a whole can of worms, and
Hmm.
I ended up doing the post, and I had these random, ex people were like giving me sort of the thumbs up, saying this is great, because unfortunately, from their perspective, like a lot of them, in their sort of their country, they don't feel they can speak up about this sort of thing because they might, be concerned it will impact their career,
Right.
because of if IXOR is part of their network,
Hmm.
then they might still want
Right.
to work there. Although I
Hmm.
wouldn't advise it, but they're they're concerned about speaking up, just because they need a job no matter
Hmm.
at the end of the day. And if you think about it, if you're a Greek artist and you want to live in Greece rather than the UK or somewhere like that, then
Hmm.
I guess you've only got a handful of companies to choose from.
For sure. Yeah.
But interestingly, I did get some contact from the CEO of a different Greek VFX company who was incredibly frustrated with the
Right.
behaviour of IXOR VFX. And in fact, to the point where they were saying, "Hey, let me email your contract to my lawyer just to get them to look over it
Sure.
because they don't want the reputation of Greece to be damaged." And
Yeah.
I did explain to him that is not my intent. My intent is to raise awareness about the bad practices of this company.
Hmm.
And it turns out that this has been going on for a long time. Like, in fact, I did make some notes from
Hmm.
what I was sending basically text back and forward from the ex staff, so I could just read out some of the points if you want.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So these are just random notes. I don't think there's a proper order, but
Yeah.
from what I have learnt, I will just say now, okay, so this is from ex staff, so I cannot confirm any of this stuff. I cannot 1,000% prove it's true. I just know there is a group of people who have evidence that they work there, and this is what they're saying. So that's all I can say. I cannot 1,000% prove this is true.
Sure.
So we could all speculate based on what I've witnessed and the evidence I have and they have. We can speculate. Okay. So the ex-staff were saying, so this is going back a few years, some of these people worked on site. They were saying IXOR have a core team of 5 people who are paid legally, and at least at the time when they had a studio, they would recruit very inexperienced young artists for cash pay who were earning between 500 to 750 euros per month of without any contract or consistent pay date. So that, I mean, I don't know what minimum wage is in Greece, but that's ridiculous. That's so low, and the person who worked there, they only left it, not too many years ago. So what was it? One of these guys was saying, for a few years during the mid-2010s, I would spend 20 hours in office per day and only saw the person who is now the legal owner twice. But, actually, that's a point to raise. So, the company founder is called Andrew Nikos. I can't pronounce his surname. So, call him Andrew Nikos B. What's quite bizarre is that when you sign a contract, even though he's the founder, he has 3 LinkedIn pages. One says he's the owner of IXOR, which would make sense. If you founded a company, you would also own it. But when you sign a contract, it is another person called Nikos Z. I'm not going to pronounce the rest of it. He's the legal owner on paper, but then when you go onto his LinkedIn page, he is a sports physiotherapist.
Right.
So it's very peculiar.
Where does the connection come from?
Yeah, so what I've heard from these people is that he was an investor into the business.
Okay.
And I speculate this. Okay, so he invested money into the business, and due to legal issues with companies such as the Foundry and the Greek government and Autodesk, then the ownership was changed in 2017. However, another caveat, if you go onto this guy's LinkedIn page, it just says producer / physiotherapist. That's such a bizarre. Like you have to be incredibly modest to be the owner of a company and just producer and sports physiotherapist. Because that's better than being an owner. Like it makes no logical sense. So basically, according to this ex-staff member, they were saying, at the time I worked in the office, there was no internet because all of the software was cracked and illegal. There were numerous attempts from the Foundry and Autodesk to sue them, and I think in 2017 Autodesk managed to successfully do this, which is one of the reasons why the ownership changed in the summer of 2017. As well as I think they had a visit during the time that this person was describing. They had people from the government turn up and just basically come into the office and say, like, hang on a minute, these people aren't legally even, being paid properly and all that sort of thing. So this is what has since happened, but nowadays it's all completely remote. And the people that I was speaking to, because you go on their website and you think, oh, okay, this is a company, they've got 3 offices across the globe. It must be very world-renowned. But as far as he's saying, he says, I've never heard of those locations. And then he said, you know, if you look on Google Maps, it's clearly just someone's rental property. Like,
Right.
so I think it's this whole thing of an image. Like it's almost like someone's ego. Like you're creating. So you know, I suppose that in a way that's selling a business. Like you've got to create this image of, you know, we're all, you know, everywhere. This is the work we create.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not completely true. And I think even as a company, in order to get consistent clientele and build a good reputation,
Yeah.
you need to be somewhat honest.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, everyone can lie slightly, but I mean, you know, if you're, you know, for example, if you're a guy and you're claiming you're 6 foot but you're 4 foot, I mean, that's a big lie.
Yeah, for sure.
Same in VFX. If you're claiming you do all these big things, you know, that's the problem we're finding nowadays because of AI. So another thing to note about this company is what I've noticed is if you go on their website, you see the list of services they offer everything. So it seems like they could do you everything in the world. They can. You need a film filmed, we'll film it. You need the cars, you need the locations, we'll do it. Yeah,
Right.
all the VFX, but it's like it's literally one person who is, you know, sort of creating this sort of almost like fictional universe of VFX
Providing
ability.
that.
Because during that whole time that I worked for them, there's an extreme lack of knowledge and understanding of anything like color
Right.
space. Like the end result for that commercial, like I could link it to you privately, but it's such a nonsense.
Right.
It's the continuity is so random because I showed it to my partner and family, and they just said, "Is this AI generated?" Because it goes from very bizarre, like student animation, maybe something I would have done in the late 2000s, suddenly cuts to my shot, and then it looks more normal as what the project was meant to be.
Yeah.
And then suddenly again to like random nonsense which makes no sense, like AI generated images which have been
Right.
processed so many times. And yeah, so for anyone like looking to like work with them or, you know, or potentially hire them to do projects, I would just say go on their website and just start right clicking on images, press search with Google Lens, and the amount of times the search will come up and you will get you know, description saying free AI premium art.
Right.
Pretty much
Right.
everything.
Sure. Yeah.
If you do that with any other post house, that won't be the
Yeah.
case.
Of course. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So what's come out of it? So you've, I'm assuming you've not been paid. So what have you, apart from the LinkedIn post, what's been your route to resolution to this case?
Well, I mean, it's not the complete resolution, but it just, you know, it seems to be that, you know, even for someone who, in my opinion, is acting in a sort of unprofessional, you know, fraudulent manner, you know, they have a surprisingly high concern of their own public opinion. If you have such a high opinion of yourself, then why would you
Of course.
not resolve the issue by just paying the person you hired in the first place? So from, you know, so by making people aware, then I know that I have definitely prevented numerous artists from working there. So for me, that was my goal of it, really. And you know, hopefully I've raised awareness of other collaborations and things like that. But I'm still, you know, I'm still plowing away looking into resolutions, because I did speak to Beck too. I know a lot of people that might listen to this are Beck 2 members, and unfortunately, because it's not in the UK, they can't really offer much assistance. So they'll link, so they just link me to the, I forgot the link, but it was, yeah, debt recovery, like
Right.
in Europe. But unfortunately, yeah, it's just like not a great time to like be doing this sort of thing because I've got there are too many things to look at. So when you start messing around with, claiming money, like I will continue to pursue it, but it's just such a silly little thing. So by doing something such as a LinkedIn post for a company that's turnover is so minute, then my post would affect them more because it'll show the true reality of what they are like. Because I even left a Google review on their company page, and within 3 or 4 days, because I left them a 1 star, but it was very brutally honest. I think 4 days later, they suddenly had 7 5-star reviews somehow, but they're not obviously smart enough to realize such a conflict of interest when you've got the legal owner giving a 5-star review pretending to be a client. I mean, that's if you want to be a professional company, I mean, at least change your name. Like, do something like that if you're going to put fake reviews out there. And I searched Andrew Nichols on Facebook, and I found a bunch of the reviews are just his friends.
Right. Oh no, right.
It's so
Yeah,
silly.
I did take a look at the reviews, and it's a bit odd to see about a bunch of them all in that same week, all of them being very positive, and it just came out of nowhere. So it's
Yeah. Well, they were all posted at the same day around the same time. So it's like, so you've suddenly got 7 clients that all decided to do that.
right.
And one of them, which is called Mr. Clouds McDrive, I checked on my Google Drive, and that was literally the name of the account. They were sharing those initial 3D models, like that I couldn't even use.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So it's basically
Yeah,
Andrew Nichols controls that account. So it's like
of course, yeah.
it's a complete manipulation of the star rating and all that. Although saying all this, I should have probably looked into Glassdoor. Glassdoor is a great representation of that company because I think I told you to investigate a bit onto that. But if you scroll back,
I
so
did.
2016, yeah,
Yeah,
have you seen some of those reviews? Like, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah,
some people saying the only pro was that there are cats around the office, but the office was the person's house and all this sort of thing.
yeah.
And someone said, the only pro is that this technically counts as a job. It's like that.
Right. Yeah,
Isn't a great thing to say.
yeah. It's a shame. It's a shame that we don't look into these things before we get into a contract with a company that we've not worked for. I mean, yeah, I mean, naturally, you wouldn't think to do that, or I mean, you just go on a website, see what they do really, and I mean, it comes down to needing a job really. So you prioritize that over over just your safety per se. Um, but
Yeah, I mean, normally it's like a lot easier to spot. I think the issue with IXOR is because I recognize that name because
right,
I mean, they've been technic on paper they've been around since 2005. So you would assume, you just if you skim the website, you go on it and like if you're not paying attention, you go onto the contact page just to look for. Because normally that's what I do. I'm like in such autopilot, especially now. I can't imagine the amount of artists who are just
oh yeah, for sure,
shotgunning applications and emails.
yeah,
So there is a good chance that some other people are being, sort of done in this sort of
of course,
manner.
hmm
Um, so yeah, you just go to the contact page and you'll see, okay, offices in LA and London, yada yada yada. But the thing is, with the London office, I could go there. I guarantee if I knock on that door, obviously it's not going to be Andrew Nichols.
no,
It's
of
probably
course,
going to be some disgruntled person saying, "What are you doing at my door?" So,
yeah, sure,
although I can only speculate that. Maybe I should go test that actually.
very safe.
But yeah, it's so hopefully by doing my LinkedIn post, that's hopefully deterred a few people because this guy who is clearly the brains of the operation, Andrew Nichols, cares about his opinion so much, but doesn't seem to have consistency or understanding of sort of VFX or
Right.
fair practices. And the fact in my last, after doing that LinkedIn post, there was a few communications. So I thought, okay, maybe they're going to resolve this. And, if they did, then I would have just removed it. But no, they seem to double down on it. So their supervisor, some guy called Alan, I can't pronounce his surname, sorry. He was just saying, oh, yeah, no, Mark definitely did 50% of the work, so we gave 50% of the money to someone else, although I can't validate the work of Mark or the other person. It's like, okay, so you 100% know that I did 50% of the work, but you can't validate it. Regardless of any of that, the contract does not sort of say, like, if we want, we'll give some money to someone else, just because that's what we do. Like, it's so absurd. It's crazy. But on a side note, I did want to raise the other issue. I mentioned another studio. So for any artists looking for work out there, I wanted to mention about some exploitation in the UK. So that I've reported this to HMRC myself. So, so this is unless obviously there's any more about IXOR you wanted to ask.
No. I mean, no, for sure. I mean, I think it's good information for artists to be aware of, and to look, like, red flags for artists to look into when they're looking at signing contract with other studios. So, but it's unfortunate that it's happened to you. But yeah, grateful that you're able to share it with us. And, yeah, for sure. So.
Yeah, because I think, like, especially during the start of my career. So I guess I've been in VFX. Like, I joined in 2013.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like over 10 years now. So I guess I'm not like a super veteran, one of these guys from like the early 90s, but it's certainly at the beginning of my career, and for the first number of years, people would say stuff about, oh, you'd be blacklisted if you say anything bad. But at the end of the day, like, this whole thing that's come up, I mean, it's not even based in the UK, and it's quite a clear breach of contract. So,
Of course.
so before I even did any of that, I was messaging guys who I sort of worked with and was friends with, certainly from the beginning of my career, who are now, in quite high production roles in VFX companies. And I said, hey, long time no speak, but could I just get your opinion? Is this insane, basically? And they came back and they agreed.
Yeah.
So for me, there's no concern about this whole sort of blacklisting, because it's just truth. Like, I'm an honest, hardworking, passionate guy, and I'm so baffled that it came to this. It saddens me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But that's about 330 hours I won't get back of my life, really. So
yeah. It shouldn't.
so at least I can make good of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, tell us about the other happenings.
Yeah, I feel like this making me sound like some sort of, like, private investigator or something. But I just stumbled across something else by accident,
Right.
and then I messaged some of these other sort of like MD type people, and just to get their gauge on it, and they said, yeah, this is insane, but this is happening on our own turf.
Okay.
So there is I wasn't fully aware of it, but there is a YouTube VFX the VFX YouTuber, I use that term loosely because it's not proper VFX.
Okay.
Although I know there's a whole debate about this, but anyways, someone called Brandon B or something like this, some YouTuber VFX guy with like over 10 million YouTube subscribers, and I think he had about 4 million TikTok or something like that. But anyway, so a lot of social media coverage, and only in the last how many months, like 5 months, I've seen job posting by this company called Studio B, and I've not really heard of them. I think the first time I clicked on them, I saw the website and I just thought, oh, this looks a bit rubbish, like YouTube videos. So I ignored it, and then eventually I ended up applying for one of the roles about a month ago. And after a week, I get this email response saying, "Hey, yeah, we've decided, we would love to have you in for a week-long trial. There'll be £75 a day expenses. When can we book you in?" And then I'd say, "Well, is there a contract for this?" And then meanwhile, I'm thinking, well, why are they paying £75 a day? Because that's below minimum wage, but then they're calling it expenses. They come back and say, well, there's no contract because it is a trial, but when you come on site, we will get you to sign an NDA. So an NDA, for anyone listening, if you don't know what that means, non-disclosure agreement, so it's not a contract, but however, they have made this magical NDA, which also says whatever you do on our premises is now ours. And when I debated that slightly with them by email, surprisingly, they came back and said, well, actually, we're doing that because, you've got to finish a project end to end. So you basically have to do one of our videos.
Okay.
All of it by yourself, end to end, in a week.
As a trial?
Yeah, with no contract, but we will probably pay you £75 a day, which is below minimum wage, like the legal minimum wage. So that is, that is where things become an issue, because that is clear exploitation. The fact that these jobs, so there's a junior, mid, senior role. So I was applying, and that was for a senior role. So initially that was red flags, because they're looking for someone with over 8 years experience. So I did check with other people, like an MD of the studio. I said, have you ever heard of this? And they said, no. Like, no other reputable company would ever do that.
Of course, not whilst you have a show reel to show like what you can do. There's no need for a trial to take place, really.
Exactly. But now it makes more sense in terms of the fact that these roles have been up since last year.
Right.
So if you go on LinkedIn now and you type in visual effects artist for Studio B, at least yesterday when I checked, it was still there. So, and I checked on Indeed Jobs and it was saying posted 30 plus days ago. So we can speculate that if people keep applying and keep doing this trial,
for sure.
Is anyone being paid for this? And what are these videos like? Are they, this seems quite logical that it's just their content. So they're kind of creating this continual exploitation.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And, I did make them aware of that, but I didn't receive any further responses. But it just seems like absolutely ridiculous, especially during this time, that they would be doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I just want to make people aware of that, because I cannot. So please, anyone listening to this, don't go there. Like, that's a minimum wage. It has to be, was it £83.36? And because there's no contract, there's no guarantee of getting paid that. So you could just work for free to create content for a multi-million-pound earning YouTuber.
Yeah. So I'd stipulate on it again. Yeah, just wherever your situation, just make sure you're working somewhere with a proper contract, and just working on a trial basis, just something that's I haven't actually done in the last decade of my industry. Like, time is just unheard of. So just be careful.
Yeah, I think the only other weird experience I ever had was near the start of my career, like maybe somewhere like 2012. I think I was using some job site called Mandy or something.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah, Yeah, that was my first error. I used a site that I just but anyway, I turned up to a location which seemed abandoned.
Right.
So I was actually nervous to walk into the building. It was somewhere in Romford, which
Right.
I have not been to since.
Hmm.
And there was just a man in an office which looked like either it had been evacuated or something. And he just had a laptop, but he was definitely running a VFX company.
Wow.
But for some reason, he needed a copy of my show reel and a list of the services I can provide.
Oh
So
wow.
then they can say what services they can provide to their
Right.
clients.
Right.
But I said, what about all these high-end animations on your website?
Mm.
And they said, well, they're not done in the UK, so we can't use those. So what
Right.
we'll do is we'll take your show reel and then present that to clients as what we do, and then
Mm.
we'll pay you minimum wage. And I was thinking, even that was the start of my career, and I thought,
Mm.
that does not sound right, and I
No.
don't even feel safe in
Of
wherever
course.
that was. That was so bizarre.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I wish I knew what the name of that company was, but I mean, it probably wasn't real, but it was some guy had flown in from some other country.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like you've been through some adventurous paths, journeys. But
But yeah,
it's great. It's great that you're able to talk about it. I have heard of the term of being blacklisted in app studios, and it's something that artists are aware of, and it stops artists being honest online and just coming out and just speaking about things that happen behind the scenes. And it shouldn't be the case. We should be able to freely, as you have, be able to like speak out and just make people aware and to protect artists from going into that danger as well. So um that something needs to change. Something needs to change. There needs to be some way of um identifying or verifying that studios, I mean, obviously the big studios, I mean, I think as a basic thing, people should just work for studios that they know of, or have the reputation of like consistent work, and just you can just see from the website that they do genuine work. But it's just, you just have to be quite careful with testing or like providing services for studios that you're not aware of. Um, it's just, just as soon as you have any red flags, I think you should be yeah double checking yourself and what you're signing. And it can be actually quite dangerous for when you sign stuff, because it can lead you to being liable to things. So um
yeah.
scary.
I mean, yeah. There's even a guy that I like one. Like, I speak to like quite a dozen people on LinkedIn who are like fellow sort of artists in all
Hmm.
sorts of positions. And there's one guy who I think joined VFX like a year or two after me,
Hmm.
but he's basically like a senior, like good senior level artist.
Hmm.
And then he was saying something about working without contracts recently. I was saying, what? Like, what? Like, this is insane. Is everyone just doing this? Because that
Mm.
is not a good game plan. There is
Yeah,
not.
no.
Like,
Yeah.
please, anyone listening to this, do not like
Of
work
course.
for do not work without contracts. There's
Hmm.
like, I mean, I know we're all creatives and we're meant to be all sort of, focused on art, passionate about it, but unfortunately, you do need to read up on a few things because you will get stung.
Yeah.
And I mean, before my post about IXOR, that's why I posted about offering like video calls to people regarding freelancing and how to set up a limited company, and it's not anything to do with how to find a job per se. I
Hmm.
don't doubt any person can work out that,
Hmm.
but it's more how to operate and how to financially make it worthwhile to be self-employed, because some of the things that I've heard people like, I've had to work all this stuff out myself, And I think there's a lot of people that just sort of naively just go along with the flow of things. They just assume everything's hunky-dory. Like, you want me to work on this project without a contract? Yeah, that's great. Yeah, because I'm an artist and I care. But unfortunately, they won't. They won't care. And, people think, if you're self-employed as an artist, oh, yeah, I'll just hire an accountant. They'll care for me and, tell me all the right things. It's like, no, they will file your corporation taxes, sure, and maybe your self-assessment if you ask them to. But that's all their concern. Like, they are not your friend. And so I hear stories of people being charged like £6,000, £8,000, and I'm thinking, oh my god, like for my corporation tax, £1,800, like super cheap, and all my taxes for this last year, just over 17% I paid in tax, which is like less than people on standard contract.
Yeah, for sure.
And as a freelancer, you can earn more. So,
works
but
out.
but accountants won't tell you how to do that. So yeah, if there is anyone out there that wanted to organize a video call, like I could surely like enlighten you, because there are a lot of people I think are being taken advantage of, and it's certainly, especially in the current times, it's now a good time, I think, for artists to reevaluate things.
For sure.
Especially those that I heard on the last podcast, like Kurt was saying, like people remortgaging houses and all this sort of stuff. And so it would sadden me even more to hear that, people are doing that and then being taken advantage of. It's like that's too many bad things to happen at once.
Yeah, for sure. It's a shame. It's a shame, but yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for championing and raising awareness for this. I'll be sure I'll do my best to push it out and just make sure people are aware of it. So thank you so much for your time.
No, that's all good. I did just want to say, for any artists out there that do want to make a little bit of easy money on the side, I'll just share some quick examples, just for some like pocket money. But there is so much like games research. You can actually just be paid to test games, not like kind of like a QA tester, but just for like random one-off days. There's a company called researchi.co.uk, and you just fill out an application form and you can just turn up. And for example, I think in a few days I'll be paid like £150 just to turn up and play video games for like an hour or two. Like how simple is that? There's also take part in research.co.uk. I recommend that. Really easy again. And film extras, Universal Extras, famestreet.co.uk. So you could be a background extra in a film. And certainly in the late 2000s, I made a few £1,000s in like a week or two just by standing looking silly in the background. But yeah, I felt I would share that because I know a lot of people are on hard times, but those are certainly ways where you could just fill out a form and, sometimes you could be paid hundreds of pounds just in one day just to do something really simple.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's really helpful. And hopefully, as Kurt said, and from what we're hearing, although there are speculations, hopefully the industry, bounces back as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think the time to diversify is certainly now, and I think hopefully people will use this as a time to reevaluate certain things, because I know I certainly am. But I mean some of the work that I've hopefully have a pencil with in another month or two is not necessarily VFX per se, but it is certainly within the spectrum of software knowledge that I have. I think some people just fail to realize that you are an artist, but that is not the extent of your ability. Like, for example, your match moving skills, it doesn't just mean, there's so many more things that you have done in your job. just because you turn up somewhere and you utilize this software skills and understanding.
Yeah.
There are so many other things that you are doing within that job, like you are, managing your time, you are sort of coordinating your shots and all that sort of thing to a certain extent. So in terms of getting, different types of roles outside of the VFX,
Yeah.
I think people just need to work on rephrasing their experiences, because there are certainly a lot of jobs out there which are good. VFX is not the be all and end all, and I know AI for some people will possibly be a deciding factor whether they even bother to continue with it. But it's not the end games. It's just rebranding your own identity and skill set. I think that's what now is the time for everyone to at least make some notes on how they can essentially sell themselves in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Mark.